Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again for another session of OEB's Online Learning Hub. My name is Lina Al-Atasi. I'm the Head of Innovation at Amman Arab Bank. This week, our workshops will focus on the foundations of turning an innovative idea into a proof of concept, pitching an idea to potential investors, what it takes to become a successful startup, and how to build a strong personal brand. For more information about our workshops, please visit Amman Arab Bank's social media pages. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Éirek Minko, a senior enterprise architect at GBM. For students or entrepreneurs who are looking to start a new business venture or to set up or to create a new idea, I think you'll find today's workshop very useful, as Éirek will help you understand how you can effectively pitch your idea to potential investors or to a potential supporter. If you have any questions during the presentation, please ask your questions in the chat window and they'll be read out loud and addressed by our speaker. If you'd like to join the discussion at the end of the presentation, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Éirek, over to you.
Hi, Salam alaikum, welcome everyone, and Ramadan Kareem. I hope this finds you all well and safe at home in these interesting times that we have. So as Lynn just mentioned, what this presentation is really going to go through is roughly around a framework to help you to pitch an idea. Now, this is part of the series that we're doing with OAB towards their hackathon as well, which we'll be happening later in the year this year. Now, I'm from New Zealand, so if you're struggling with my accent, that is why. Please shout out if I'm not clear enough or loud enough. And again, just add some questions and Liam will interrupt me if I need to be something that needs to be clarified as we go through. So just without further ado, I'll get us started. Hopefully we can get through this in roughly an hour. Normally the session would be run over half a day, but what we'll do is we'll go through the first parts of it and then there's some activities that you can do by yourselves in your groups. Perhaps when you're thinking about an idea or pitching it, then you can use these techniques to help you with that. So GBM, just a little bit about who we are. We're a solutions provider, a technology provider, system integrator. And essentially our kind of mission is to accelerate the transformation and digital transformation of companies around the Gulf area as well. Our vision is to be the leading technology company preparing businesses for the future, for tomorrow. So obviously in these times, this has not been more important than ever. And so we're here to help customers to actually try and think about where they should be in the future and how they are. And through that, we have a lot of tools that we have used ourselves. And this course is part of that. Yesterday, we went through our business model canvas, which we use ourselves as well to help make sure that we're actually serving our customers in the right way and that they're focusing on the business need that they have to actually address the challenges of the day. Now, if we see where GBM started in 1990, we started, so we're just hitting our 30th year this year. We started off as a distributor for IBM, which is why the GBM name sounds a bit like IBM. We've since moved on a lot from that. 2007, we added a Pakistan office as well. And right through to today, where we're around about 1,500 plus employees across the Gulf. So there's a number of awards that we've got through that. But our spread, as you can see from this little picture, is just mostly around the Gulf: Kuwait, Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Pakistan, Oman. And this has allowed us to actually share our knowledge across the region and then to bring us to the branches and of course to here in Oman as well, where we have a local office, which is around about 120 employees. And we're very proud of our high level of Omanization, which we're trying to increase all the time. And we're a leading system integrator in the region as well. We focus mostly on customer experience and providing end-to-end solutions. So we actually partner with a number of businesses as well to help us actually deliver the solutions to our customers as well. Again, we've mentioned before, we've focused a lot on IBM products, but it's certainly no means the only area that we focus on. So we do consulting as well as we do products like SAP and SuccessFactors, and we're now moving into a lot of the cloud technologies as well and partnering with Amazon and AWS and even Azure and in Dubai. Now, the success is mostly through our customer success, so that's a critical factor for us, is making sure that our customers are foremost in our mind as well. So that kind of brings us to our presentation here, which we're going to talk about. And while this is really how to pitch an idea, it's really important to think about when you're pitching an idea that you need to focus on selling these three items here that we focus on as well when we're actually talking to our customers. And that is to make sure that we're actually focusing on the business outcomes. What is the outcome? What's the value of the idea that we're trying to bring to bear with the customer? So that's our key imperative there, is to sell the value. The next, of course, is being the importance of being clear and concise. So complexity is easy, simplicity is hard. We'll talk about this later on. So selling the value, making sure we're selling it clear and concise, and then a vision of how you can actually get there to drive the innovation. So these three pieces are what essentially is going to make up how you can pitch an idea. If you can get these three things, ensure that you know what the value is. If there's no value in what you are actually trying to convey, with in your hackathon idea, and that's mostly where we're going to be talking about today, is really when we're looking at maybe this part of, we want to actually provide OAB with something that we think is going to be value. We need to show what that value is, and then we need to show how we can actually pitch that idea very easy, simplicity, without having the complexity clouding that vision. The next is how to actually get there. So selling the roadmap, and then all being able to do this in a very concise and simple way. So the key part of, before we go on actually the framework, we're just going to go through what the key traits of a modern change agent are. So when you're pitching an idea, you're generally trying to be a change agent, essentially, or a seller is what we would call it as well in a more traditional model. But it's key in any kind of idea when you're pitching, you need to be able to sell the change. To be able to do that, there are these 5 components that you need to really be really well versed at to be able to pitch that idea and sell yourself as well, and sell the story that you've got. So the first box we have here is, of course, being an empathetic listener. When you're actually, pitching an idea, you need to be aware of the cues that are coming back from the audience that you're sending it to, and being empathetic and actually understanding the person you're speaking to or the audience that you're speaking to is critical in being able to then get the next one, which is this mastery of the storytelling mastery. So being able to sell a story. How do you tell a story, and how can you actually then tell that story while empathetically listening as well? So those 2 things are critical to being able to communicate, of course. So listening and then telling as well through the story. Now, when we're talking about change agent, and we focus a lot on technology as well, but once you've actually managed to get that empathetic listening and the storytelling, the next box at the bottom here, we have the disruptive tech enthusiast. So understanding the technology market. How are things changing and happening around you, and understanding that technology well and showing that you have passion as well for that technology. It's a key part of being able to then tie this all together into being able to build your story. The other one in the center here is the trust and advocacy leader. So having trust and the customer understanding that the business of the person you're speaking to, whether this is OAB or another business, understanding what you're actually doing, and so that they can actually trust you and getting that trust. This is the hardest one in the center. And of course, the knowledge amplification on the right, which is being able to take information and actually spread it, amplify it. Being an influencer, we know this as well. So we heard of social influencers, but having that reach and that understanding on how you actually can take some piece of information that you know about from this disruptive technology, for example, and then actually making it broader and wider so that you can actually send that across to other people and have them sell your story. So those 5 key pieces, all in their own right, quite difficult to master, but they're what we think of as what makes up the best opportunity for you to be able to sell and pitch an idea. So now, on to what we think about what you're actually doing when we're pitching an idea. It's sort of like looking for this unrecognized opportunity, the way that you can improve the business and tailor it to a specific challenge that's linked to your distinct value. So how do you do this? And there's sort of this, what we call this insight target selling, where we start off on the outside and you understand the technology, perhaps you know about a solution and an idea that you have. So you can understand the product and technology and the way that you're actually going to present this idea. That gets you sort of halfway, well, a certain way inside to selling the idea. The next kind of inside of that is, well, you know how to put your idea to work inside an industry. So you understand an industry. And in our case, we would talk about banking industry, which is OAB is, but this could be whatever industry you're focusing on. And even as we see businesses that are actually spreading across multiple industries, you need to know how that industry is working within its ecosystem. So first, you know the solution, and now you can understand the industry as well. If you can prove these 2 points, you're now nearer to being able to get someone as a trusted idea that you're selling. The next is really understanding the business inside the industry. So the specifics, for example, so we start off with understanding our products, we then move into the industry, which is banking. In our case, understanding OAB and understanding where OAB is, for example, in this market. Now, if we know where OAB is, we can then better understand how we're going to help OAB to actually then pitch an idea to them that's going to be more resonant to them. Bringing these all together is really what we call inside selling, or it's selling the value, bringing the value to the company and showing this. And if you can bring all of these things through, we can call this, you can actually provide real insight to be able to show why your idea is actually important and actually can be brought together to, so then if we get all those things together, then we're actually now going to be able to be in a better position to pitch our idea. So this is the target, heading to the insight so that you can tell insight that that company is going to bring. So insights examples really is when you think about a company, they often don't realize that they have a problem that needs to be solved. One example, or these examples here, is misestimating a problem. So they may think that the problem is fine, there's not an issue there. So you need to show how and why the problem is underestimated and what your solution is going to do to solve that. The next one, of course, is a misunderstood cause for a problem that's happening. Perhaps something's happening in a business and they don't actually think of it as being a problem. They see it as a cost of business. Now you can provide an insight to show how you've actually discovered that this isn't a cost of business. You can actually resolve that cost of business and reduce that friction. An unrecognized problem, of course. If the customer isn't aware that there is a problem there, then they may be misinformed or they don't see a trend that's happening that you are aware of. Actually being able to show that and recognizing that problem and showing it to them as well. And the last one, of course, the most common one was an unrecognized opportunity. So businesses often work within their standard business model. If you can show a different model, which that organization can work, then you can actually now start bringing all these pieces together to show that there's an unrecognized opportunity that they can then exploit through what your idea is going to bring to them. So to that effect, really what we have is, and this is something that we've used before as well, and we're not going to go through every step of this in the hour that we have today, but these are the kind of stages that we go through to prepare ourselves for being able to pitch an idea to any audience, right? So, and the first and most important part of this stage is building your compelling reason to act. So then you take that idea, we'll go through these in more detail shortly, you then need to build what we call an elevator pitch. If you can then take a compelling reason to act, taking the things we learned about earlier, and then we can condense that into a 90-second, maybe even 30-second elevator pitch. So we'll talk about that as well. Then we can translate that into building a one-page value proposition. So yesterday we talked about the business model canvas. This is one kind of a one-pager that you can to try and understand your proposition as well. Then we take that to obviously prepare and practice. And then finally, you do a role play, well, basically to yourself, so that you're preparing yourselves to pitch that idea at the end of it as well. Now, these 5 steps, usually we can go through these in half a day. And what we'll do is we'll skim through them quite quickly so we can show you yourselves a framework for how you can actually do this in your own time and take these ideas, how you actually work your way through these, and then go through to actually knowing how you're going to do it. The key 3 things that we've got here that we're talking about is why. Why do we need to do something? What is the reason for the idea that you've got? why you? Why are you the best person to actually execute this idea? Why is your solution better than anyone else's? Why, you know, we're in a competitive world, so we need to make sure that we're selling ourselves and our ability to deliver on the idea as well. And then, of course, the most important thing is why now? Why do we need to act now to actually execute your idea? Because if we have an idea which is going to be valid in 5 years' time or in a year's time, then that's really going to be a difficult thing to be able to pitch right now. Then you're better off waiting until that moment is right. If we can't translate why now is the best time to do something, then the whole thing comes apart a little bit, okay? So we'll just move on from there. So now on the first section, we're going to go through building your compelling reason to act. We're going to spend the most amount of time on this because this is the most important area that I see. If you can actually build a compelling reason to act in your idea, then you can actually be far better to be able to be confident to create all the other steps that follow on from this, and then be confident that your idea will be able to be pitched easily as well. So if we think about compelling CRAs or compelling reasons to act, they are everywhere and we see them all the time. So the simplest one that I find an example is just do it. This is really compelling because it actually tells you to just do it. Go out there and do it. And guess what? You're going to buy some sports gear as well to do that. The one in the middle here is around, you know, prevention of heart attack with low dose aspirins. So, you know, they're actually compelling people with this idea that this is something you need to do, and you can actually compel people with it. It's quite a simple marketing trick that's used. And on the right here, we can see that you've got this fruit, but look, we've got a drink which can actually provide that fruit intake that you can take in a simple thing. So they're compelling you to act on what it is. But what actually makes up this whole compelling reason to act? And at the moment, of course, during this Ramadan time as well, here's an example I found just recently, which is the compelling reason to, you know, to do something out in the market today, which is like got 5 years warranty, all these things, trying to compel you to actually act today and now. And some of these are maybe not as relevant, but this is just an example of how people create these compelling reasons, whether they exist or not. So what we want to generally find is, and in these cases, which are compelling reasons, which are easily there and not just time sensitive, they're actually things that are going to help and improve the way that your product's going to help something or the person that they're doing and the customer. So the compelling reasons to drive the action as well. They make sure that your idea is the first thing that's going to be taken forward as well. Because if you can compel someone to do something, then they're the reason, the economic owner or the business owner, the person who's going to be impacted the most is going to want to actually do something right now. So defining, so I'm just seeing a few questions. Lena, are there anything we need to address?
I think there's a question around whether this is similar to a SWOT analysis.
Is this similar to SWOT analysis?
That was the question that was raised. So
yeah, I mean, SWOT analysis is one technique, and that's definitely something you can use to build your CRA as well. It's not, so like I said, this is one tool. There are a number of other tools that you can also use as well. So definitely in your kit bag, you need to have a lot of different tools that you can use to understand what your problem is. A SWOT analysis is definitely one you can use, but this is going to be a more simplified approach to this. This is just breaking it down to the 3 rather than all the acronyms of the SWOT analysis as well. But definitely most of the elements we'll talk about will be covered by SWOT as well.
There's a second question. What's the difference between compelling reason to act and a slogan?
Compelling reason to act and a slogan. So a slogan can be a compelling reason to act, right? But we'll go through this now. Hopefully this will explain, you know, why you, why now. These are the 3 elements of a compelling reason to act. And so that can be made into a slogan for sure. And if you can, then that's brilliant. And, you know, but usually it's a little bit more complex than just a slogan itself. But if you can actually lump all these things together into a simple slogan, then brilliant. And it does actually bring something I haven't included in this, but there's a concept called a haiku, which is a Japanese concept of simplifying a problem. And a haiku basically becomes a slogan, and it can be divided up into a compelling reason to act as well. So if you're interested in slogans and how to create really good phrases or simplifying a problem, then a haiku model is a really good thing to look at. It's a Japanese way of phrasing in as little words as possible, a sentence. So, so the three elements as we were talking about here. So it's first of all is the KPI, define impact on a KPI. Why? What is it gonna do? What does your idea achieve? What is the impact gonna be? Is it increased throughput? Is it, maybe increased revenue? Is it a cost saving? And then why you is really important. This is a very difficult one in this situation, but you need to make sure that you're standing out. Why is your solution different? What is the idea that you're bringing? Your unique selling proposition that you're bringing to the story to this? You or your team, this could be as well, or your company, if it's a company that's actually doing this. But here we're focusing on the individual, so we're going to call this why you, but this could be why company XYZ that's actually going to provide the solution. But we'll talk about why you, because generally when we're going into the hackathon scenario, you're going to be there pitching an idea up against a number of people. And there may be a number of people who have exactly the same idea as you or something very similar. But why are you the one that's going to be the one that's going to actually be able to help with this situation and make sure that you're going to see through the problem? And we'll talk about that in more detail shortly. The third one, of course, is why now? A trigger event or date or quantified impact that's either going to happen that's going to reduce. So this is a missed opportunity cost if we don't do it now. This is perhaps an opportunity that's temporal. Maybe there's something that's happening. I mean, there are definitely opportunities today because of what's happening. We know the situation won't last forever, but we need to be aware that there are things that perhaps at the moment, this could be a good example of a temporal item that you say, right, we need to do something because of these reasons. And dividing all of these things together then, the why you, and the why now, is a really good way to drive a critical reason to act. And then once you've got all those things together, then that will be a really good vehicle for you to be able to pitch an idea around as well. So just to reiterate as well, this process isn't about creating the idea. It's like once I have the idea, what are the things that are going to make this idea successful? If you can't answer these three things, then potentially you need to change your idea, or maybe the idea is not quite right for this time. And maybe the why now is not as important. You want to defer that to later on. So we're focusing on pitching an idea which is going to be valid right here and now as soon as possible to make the person who's actually consuming your information that you're providing, the idea that you've got, and actually wanting to actually move on right now so that they take you on board. So complexity is your enemy. Any fool can make something complicated, and we've talked about this before, but simplifying things is really the hardest thing. And this whole process around pitching an idea is really about making things simple. So what we would normally do when we're thinking about these critical reasons to act, we'd actually try and write this out. So actually write it out, and we'd do an exercise around this. If we had some more time, what we could do is try this out, write some ideas, and we can get some feedback on it. But look at the business value that your solution is going to provide, and then what the solution will provide to the customer as well. Then why you? Why are you uniquely qualified? What's the differentiator versus alternatives? And then the why now. And this is really what a critical reason to act form would look like. So normally you'd go through the business reason. It's not a reinstatement of issues when you're thinking about the business reason for doing this. It's just the understanding the why. So in this example, completing the sentence, whatever the idea will provide the client with the ability to do X, Y, Z. Now, if it's not answering the so what, then you really need to go back and reiterate on it. You really need to pass the so what test. So if you say something when you're talking about why this needs to be done, if you can't get this into a concise statement, then keep on reworking this statement, the why statement, into a very simple statement that can actually talk about how this is going to be solving the problem that the customer is going to address. So, and if you can't find it straight away, then keep calm, keep digging, keep looking at it. There's I think is it Richard Sneak's, the 5 whys. If you keep on asking why 5 times and you still, if you can't get to, if you stop at the 3rd why and you can't answer anything further, then try something slightly differently. Then once you can actually get through all of those, then you can actually answer the why very clearly and succinctly. So when we look about it, a key sort of starting point, for example, around this, drilling down into KPIs. So a fitness program that allows you to live a healthier lifestyle. So what's the business impact? Healthier, less stress, disease, longer, happier life, right? So we're not selling a fitness program, we're selling a longer, happier life. That's actually the selling pitch that you've got here. It's not the starting point, which is healthier, and then it moves through. Predictive analytics, for example, which some kind of system which may fix some issues before they happen. So predicting this, so real reason we do that is to reduce the maintenance costs, for example, in this case. So it's not just predicting things, it's saying, well, why do you want to predict something? What's going to be the cost and the profit effect that's going to analyze? Just having a solution which can predict something is fine, but actually, why do you actually want to put that in place if it's not going to help you with anything? Is it going to perhaps find X amount of additional customers? Another analytic solution to make faster and better decisions. Why do you want to do faster, better decisions? Again, this is driving into the profit, personalization, and perhaps the increased speed and growth. So understanding exactly what that point is that you're actually driving towards, that actually your way that you're looking at the problem and your idea is actually going to end up, we want to end at the ending point, which is the impacts of the business, rather than the starting point, which is perhaps the solution that you've thought of. So examples of that we have there is to target your market efforts to drive incremental revenue, 12% in all segments, predict data quality issues so that there's easier to work later on, provide the ability to save time on discovery and visualizations, and reduced risk of unplanned outages. And some more examples might be to actually drive increased customers, better customer satisfaction, which stays with customers that are going to stay for longer, or perhaps your idea is actually going to provide a whole new revenue stream for the company as well. So we're asking what the business value is. What are the savings that are going to be or the gain to the business? And what is the base for your numbers? Do the research, understand what the potential is here as well. Some of these are quite difficult if it's a new idea, but it's always good to try something else and see what it would be first of all as well. Understand what kind of technologies you need to use. I've got product names, but do you need to use AI? Is data involved? Is it perhaps a mobile? Is it a kiosk? What kind of things do you actually need to use? And then importantly, what is the KPI that your clients care about? What are the things that business, if you've done all that insight selling example, you understand the technology, you're understanding the actual business, the industry that it's in, and then understanding the specific customer you're talking to, then you can start working out what the exact KPIs that person you're talking to understands and cares about. So why you? So this is something that's often missed when we talk about pitching an idea. We talk about an idea, we talk about the benefits of the idea, but without actually spelling out why you're able to be the person who's able to take that idea and actually implement it correctly in the right way, then it just becomes an idea that perhaps, this is the proof is to show why you can actually execute on it, to understand, what your differentiation is against another one's. So, your idea uniquely enables OOB to do this, whatever it is. So avoiding features and making sure you're drilling into the benefits by answering the so what. So again, we're talking about why are you doing it, but why you? Why, and making sure that so what is now being completed. So if another solution can claim the same, then it's not unique. If someone else can do exactly what you're talking about, then where's your unique proposition? You need to make sure that we build this into our pitch when we're talking about ideas, that we need to know that this is why you need to be chosen. So the example of the storage of MP3s and also the icon on the right, whereas you need to stand out as well. Make sure that you're standing out in the crowd so that you can be selected and chosen as the one that can actually deliver on the idea that you've got. So example of here is making sure you understand the market and show the trends and being backed by research. It's quite hard to do this, but it shows that you've got ability to execute and completeness of vision, and that can lower the risk to the person you're talking to. So if they understand that this is something you see through some of the research, through IDC or Gartner, then that can actually increase their completeness of your vision that you're selling. You're selling the vision as to why you can sell it. You maybe a cost increment, maybe you've got an approach that you show that you can do something incremental. So then you know that there's flexibility to change into infrastructure as they need to. So you can do something small, showing that you're able to actually start small and maybe grow as well on that. That can be a really good way to sell that as well. Professional, being very professional and well thought out when you think about your solution. So presentation, professionalism, really critical when you're actually pitching an idea, because this builds confidence that the solution is an idea that's executable. There are a number of other areas that you can look at, but it's really good. It's difficult, this area, to be honest. This is very hard to make yourself stand out, but it's critical in your idea being successfully chosen, rather than just the idea, the so what. Now it's why you. Why are you the best person to actually execute on that idea? If you can nail that, then you're going to be far more successful to be able to, because having someone to actually fulfill the vision is really important to customers as well. So first of all, idea, which is unique, the first mover advantage. So coming up with something extremely unique that you can then pitch as well is a really good way to show that this is why you've got these ideas. You've maybe got some intellectual capital behind that you can actually use, that you can actually bring that to the table as well. The last area in the critical reason to act is the why now. So really important to make sure you focus on why is now the time to do it. The imperative to act now is because, right? So if we don't have a reason to act now, then the idea will just be put on the back burner. If we can find something critical and compelling to work right now, then we're much more likely to have our idea executed as well. So obviously the things that usually people will focus on is bad things and good things that can happen as well. These are the two things, but there could also be critical dates and timelines. There could be reasons that are happening. Perhaps it's an event, perhaps it's the Eid break. There are certain elements which actually drive this. Financial year can sometimes be an element, which is to do with funding, but that's a little bit more complicated. I think it's better to focus on the, don't tend to focus too much on the qualitative, think of the quantitative as well. So the idea of capturing a market before anyone else, make that compelling reason in there so that when people know that now is the time, do this before your competitors do it. We have this concept of liquid expectations. If you are the customer who has a product which is working in the best way, everyone else will see that as the expectation that they need to do as well. And if you are the first mover on that, then that can be better. So far better, because you're then capture the market. So that compelling reason to act and why now is imperative to add into this story as well. So here's some examples as well. 3.5 million of savings. So you've got a certain amount of savings that you could actually do, and every month you're missing out on that opportunity cost of actually not doing this, because you've spotted something which is going to save some cost. You've perhaps got a peak shopping period as well that's happening. So then if you miss something before that happens, then you're actually going to reduce that as well. The first mover advantage, as we talked about, so the lost opportunity to customers and to the customer, and try and say, how much would that cost if you lost a certain amount of customers, or you were able to gain a certain amount of customers? What would be the opportunity that you'd actually gain from that? So why would people make investments now over some other investment? That's a really good question to ask. What is the revenue or cost savings that business can be done as well? And if they're going to do nothing until next year, so what? Why should they care? And it's really important to make sure that you can actually convey that and have that inside your idea of why you need to do it now. Break down the annual benefit as well, daily figures, understand the cost structure of what your idea is as well. Some of this you may or may not know because of the, I know a lot of people are students who are running these sessions, so you may not have that insight, but reach out to some mentors and understand what is the real cost of doing something. Understanding the financial backing behind something is quite critical as well to being able to pitch the idea, because this is what generally talks to a lot of people. That quantitative area is quite important, but the qualitative area around, actually getting people better experiences, retaining more customers, all leads in the end towards a revenue stream or a cost that's being avoided. So this is our sheet that we used, as I showed before. And then normally what we'd do is we'd spend a few minutes to actually do this. So we won't go through this as well just now, but what we'll do is we'll move on. This is an idea, a good exercise for yourself. Take your idea, use this template, write it down, and then actually try it out as well. So what we'll do is we'll be producing a PDF of this presentation as well, so you can fill this out, try it out on your own, and then you can use that for the next step as well. So once we've done our compelling reason to act, and you've actually summarized these 3 items, it's a really good idea to be able to put your idea into what we call the elevator pitch. Now, the elevator pitch is really, as it says, really the amount of time it takes for you to get into an elevator and get out of the elevator at the other end. And essentially, you know, if you think about the CEO of a company stepping into the office that you're in, sorry, into the elevator that you like to pitch it to, and then this idea is where you want to be able to summarize why you and why now in that 90-second space, so that they can actually be left with that idea and go, oh, okay, that's great. Now I know who you are, I know why I need to do something, and I need to know why I need to do it now. If you can leave someone with this idea in 90 seconds, then you're very set in a very good position to be able to pitch your idea. There's a YouTube link that I'm going to put here. I won't play it obviously now over this. I don't think we have the time to go through it. This is a really good one I found about pitching the idea about your idea, product or company. And it kind of summarizes really nicely, and it has some examples around Airbnb as well, and a few of the other kind of new disruptors, and how you can actually summarize something quite complex into a very short amount of time. The idea around this is to be able to practice as well. You know, try these things out. The way that we've used this in the past as well, and this is a really good app that we've used before. I use this a lot for when I'm preparing for a presentation. There's an app called Ori, and what it actually is a voice coach. So this voice coach allows you to record yourself, and then it rates your delivery based on the feedback that it gets. It's very clever. It uses AI. There's a small cost to using it if you want all of the features, but there's obviously a free version of it as well. And it will actually rate your energy. I don't think I'm ever hitting 76, but that's pretty good. Pace, 95%. So a really handy tool to actually use this to actually practice your elevator pitch, so that you're actually getting the voice coaching side of it as well. Obviously, talking to your friends and colleagues and testing it out, the more confident you are to actually execute your elevator pitch, the better placed you are to be able to pitch your idea as well. So again, getting these 3 items in your elevator pitch, understanding, you know, the why you, why now, all into this 90-second pitch, using tools like this. Have a look at some pitches online, what they look like, how people have actually done them in the past as well. And then you can get ideas and work on that, and then practice with, of course, with other people as well when you're actually going that. It'll tell you things like fillers that you're using, ums and ers, and the more you do these things, the better you'll get at it. So again, this is where we'd normally take an exercise to do that. We won't do that today, but it's a really interesting exercise to do amongst you and yourselves. The next page we're going on to here is now building. Once you've actually got your compelling reason to act, you now are practiced in your 90-second elevator pitch, how you're actually pitching that idea. And now a good idea as well to do is to take that, you've got your elevator pitch, now build a 1-page value proposition. 2 and 3 can actually happen in either order. You do that first or last, but you know, actually having your one-pager having a 1-page vision of what your idea is and understanding that is a really good way to being able to summarize things, so that when you're actually going to build a presentation out of this to someone else, even if the case is a presentation, which is what we're kind of leading towards, then this is a way to summarize those ideas first of all. So it's a succinct capturing of your CRA, mapping it to KPIs. It's going to develop a story that can be told in 30 or 3 minutes, the idea that you've got here. So we've gone into more detail. The elevator pitch is just getting to that point of what your idea is, just those 3 things. Now we're actually building in some depth behind it, so that we've got that depth. When you're going to be asked for some more questions about it, you've actually thought out each one of those areas as well. So it's easy for someone to grasp the idea. It doesn't need to be, you know, remember the complexity is easy. The simplicity is really hard. So keep on simplifying the problem down. Think of things like the haiku, the Japanese way of simplifying sentences, you know, avoiding words as much as possible. Getting this right is really important. So it becomes an internal selling tool for you to test it out. You can test this, show this to people on a 1-page and go, what do you think of this? They can read it quickly. Perhaps you can put it on LinkedIn for your friends to look at or something. then you can actually understand, so then you can actually show why this is a good idea and how you can then better pitch your idea and refine these things as well.
Eric, there's a question from Hanan, sorry. She's asking, how does one know they're not oversimplifying?
Well, I think if you've not been able to capture those three elements, the why you, and why now, then you've oversimplified it. But if you are able to simplify it in those things, then you're covered. Again, it's always good to test these things out. If you try it out on someone and you think you've got all of the elements in it, and they walk away and going, oh, I'm not really compelled by that. The idea is to make people go, oh, wow, that's so amazing. So if they don't do that, then you may have oversimplified it, or maybe it's just not to the right target. So it's a difficult one, but definitely the shorter you make it, and I think the 30 to 90 second elevator pitch, if you can do it within that time, then that's fine. If you've lost the meaning, then that should become apparent when you test it out. And that's what we talk about with this whole thing. It's an iterative cycle. It's not something you can do by yourself. You can start off by yourself, but then you need to test it out on people to make sure that it's going to be right. So again, Einstein, if you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. So, is there an element of you understand it too well that you then simplify away a lot of the detail? There's potentially some of that, but that's where I think testing it out is the key. So yesterday we talked about the business model canvas. This is a type of one-page proposition as well, which can help you actually talk about different areas. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but essentially it starts talking about your customer segments, your partners, the relationships, how they all operate together. And if we didn't see the session yesterday, then it's probably a good thing to look into. A business model canvas is a really good way to summarize a business model and how it actually works, so that then you understand that on a single page as well. A more simpler model that we use is essentially these 4 quadrants. And this is essentially just listing out your business values, benefits, your competitive differentiator, why you. This is the quantified value in a graphic, so some kind of imagery that can help you as well. And then the benefits and compelling events that are going to happen that it's going to help you. So this 4 quadrant area is a nice way to actually summarize it. So the why outlines the proposed solution in terms of the client's business, summarizing your recommended solutions in terms of outcomes as well. So then why your idea is unique and differentiates yourselves as expressed as benefits. So you need to be the benefit. So remembering that as well. So hopefully in your elevator pitch, you will have already talked about these things, but now we just build it out in a little bit more detail. There's some kind of imagery to show this, to show how perhaps the urgency, maybe, a graph or an image that shows try and summarize your idea into a single kind of image. And this is a really hard one for a lot of people, but actually a picture, as they say, can be as much as 1,000 words. So having some kind of graphic or way of describing your problem can be really useful to some people that aren't bothered to look at the words, because some people are more visually focused and they want to look at actual image to see that what this is as well. And then the why now at the bottom here. So the quantified benefits, compelling events aligned to KPIs. So you're going to make X amount of profit. This is going to make this much more revenue. This is going to increase the speed to market for this. It's going to lower your risk. Those kind of compelling things that you're actually doing and benefits can then go into this quadrant as well. So it's a nice one-pager summarizing in a little bit more detail than what you did in your elevator pitch. And again, this can come before the elevator pitch as well. I think these 2 elements, the first and second, can go first or before or after. You probably will have built up a lot of this anyway when you've built up your elevator pitch, but it's a good approach as well to actually summarize it. Now you've got a page to show what your idea is, whether you're just sketching this out quickly and then you can just take this and show other people, then they can start trying to throw holes in it and say, well, why? No, I don't agree with that, or I don't agree with that. How do you back this up? And you can test it out quite easily on people as well. So a compelling headline is the last one as well. You need to have some kind of statement which says why this idea is your good idea. So some kind of, you know, short phrase. This may be your slogan, as we talked about earlier, which would actually say this is why you need to do it as well. Just helps tie it all together as well. So the checklist for building this, it's just making sure that you've got an accurate reflection, the key business benefits, the why, the differentiators. It needs to be kind of aesthetically pleasing. Spend a bit of time doing a bit of design, but don't go too ticky with, you know, you're thinking of your audience as well, who you're actually going to present this to. Generally, you want it to be a logo-like or very easy to consume. Avoid product names, just the solution. Don't talk about a particular type of technology, perhaps, because understand what the actual technology is going to provide in these things as well. So make it stand out. Make it not to be the, you know, make the infographic informative, eye-catching. Consider prioritizing, you know, the real estate. Make sure there's no too many marketing statements or acronyms. Everyone, as soon as you put an acronym in there, like even just something as simple as AI, which we know, artificial intelligence, what do you actually mean by that? You know, do we're actually going to better understand the problem through this technology, and what is the actual solution that it provides? There's some pieces on the side there about fonts as well. So I want to, while we're talking about these parts as well, and we talk about the profit, the growth, and the compelling event in the bottom here, it's really the why now, and it's worth thinking about the what we call the ROI. So understanding the financial business case. When you're doing something, if you're just doing it for no reason, not a lot of businesses will take that up. They need to have some kind of return on investment that they're doing as well. They need to know, what am I going to get out of this? What's in it for me? And then of course, what is the cost that's going to be? What's the investment that I need to put into this? And this little graph just shows how you can break up basic, you know, basic accounting principles. But some of us maybe come from more of a technologist background, and we forget about the fact that we need to think about the bottom line. The CFO's kind of concerned that we're going to do something, but if it's not going to provide them with a financial benefit, then your idea is not really going to be able to get the leverage in the right places. If it's very much just qualitative and not quantitative, then we can have issues explaining it to some people. Some of the innovation leaders in those organizations will be easily convinced, but you need to be able to also show this financial backing behind it to actually show that your idea has integrity as well. So yeah, the ROI, how long does it take for you to get a benefit out of this? And this is very accounting centric, and I won't dwell on it too much, but it's an important aspect of understanding why, when you're pitching an idea, would someone do this, and how long would they get their money back out of that? Because if they don't, you know, these cycles are getting a lot shorter and shorter as well in businesses. People want instant gratification because we expect things to happen quickly, a lot quicker. We can see what we can do with a lot of the technology, and we need to make sure that what we've got is expressed as a way that how much we think we'll get out of this. How much do you think you'll actually do it? Even if it's a little bit of guesswork in there, but understanding what the potential is and putting that into an idea is really, really valuable. If you can. If you can't, then you know, if you're just doing it on guesswork, or this is a completely new idea you're not sure about, don't make it up. Just try and find things that you think you know about and use those as examples. So 33% in a year, good road, yeah. So the other possible, so here's a few examples that we've taken from, you know, some IBM examples that we had actually as well. So basically just, you know, showing what the business value, why this particular company, which is IBM in this case, and the tangible impact of why they would do it. It's a nice, snappy diagram. Know your customer and be better. Great headline in it. And then at the bottom, we've got a really good saving of how much they're going to save in a day. Another one here, drastically improve the call center ranking. So, you know, how this is obviously targeting a specific area, their mission, why to do this now, all nicely summarized in a very short amount. And at the bottom, a really big headline again, to invest X amount, and then they're going to save a year. So it's like a commercial ad for yourself that you're going to create, and something similar to this that you can use to actually pitch these ideas to as well. So think about yourselves, how am I going to sell myself in a nice, succinct way? And then you can summarize that onto a page as well. Some templates in here that I've got here. or PDF these, but it's very easy to make these templates up as well yourself. Just, create a nice template, try different ones and try them out. You can maybe try one and see if that worked, what someone thought of it, try a different one and see how that went as well. So again, normally we would spend 30 minutes to actually build these up. And I, encourage you all to do this when you have an idea, try and practice this out, see what you come up with, and then you can present it out and get some feedback on understanding how you can build these quickly. Especially when we go through into the hackathon, we like to come up with these ideas in 24 hours. How do we do this? How do we then convey that idea really quickly and easily? This little quadrant is a really good way to actually build that up. And being able to build these quickly yourself is a really good skill to have so that you can try things out. So we're kind of getting towards the end here. We're not really going to be able to go do too much of this. This is where we would actually take this, practice and prep. And then of course, what you want to do is practice your pager, make sure you're preparing for what you're doing as well. And then when you want to present it out, you actually need to prepare, make sure you've talked to yourself, simulated it, tried it out with your colleagues, with your friends, to do different roles, client roles, try and be objective. Get someone to, just practice makes perfect basically in this one. If you can actually now then summarize your one pager and then turn that into a 20 to 30 minute presentation as well with the right amount of structure, then that's a really good way that you understand the problem and you are able to pitch that idea in detail, and going back to probably refining your elevator pitch as well. So make sure you prepare as well, opening objectives, questions, closures, next steps, ensure that you're actually providing a way to wrap your idea up. So where do you start with, what's in the middle, and then what's at the end? Make sure that you're actually referring back to your idea so that you can actually go on to the next steps. And then normally what we'd do in this stage is we would do a final kind of role play where you take your idea, test it out on people, test it out on your friends, go through those steps, make sure that you have presented it and tried it out, and then you can actually make sure you can put it into action. So here you would take 15 minutes, each of you, to iterate between each other, to try it out before you actually go into your session where you're going to do it. And pretty much that is all we have for how to pitch an idea. So,
thank you, Eric. I think this is a great segue into tomorrow's workshop as well, which is how to turn your idea into proof of concept. We'd like to give our participants the opportunity to ask questions now. We have a question from Mohammed. How long should a pitch last roughly? And from an actual presentation perspective, with the number of slides and number of questions that should be addressed as well.
So really the less slides you can do, the better, right? So pitching an idea, obviously you've got your elevator pitch, which is when you meet someone on the street. And when you're actually going into a meeting for someone, and you'll generally spend, usually, depending on what context is, most meetings generally are set for an hour, which I dislike. I'd prefer to go for a 30-minute meeting and then try and get your idea into 15 minutes, which will run into 30 minutes. So 15 minutes is a good target. If you can get it, first of all, focus on being able to pitch an elevator pitch. So get it into 30 to 90 seconds. Next, you want to try and aim for a 15-minute presentation. And then if your problem, if you can't do it all in 15 minutes, then there's a lot of detail that's obviously there that you need to start talking about, but then iterate on a next set of slides, which might be a 30-minute, which might include a demonstration and things like that, which then gets out into an hour. But over an hour is too much time to pitch an idea to anyone. Yeah. Generally, meetings can't last much more than that unless you've got something interactive that you're doing as well. And that's a great way to bring people into an idea as well, is to have them actually try something out, do it a little bit towards themselves as well. But yeah, so again, 30 to 90 seconds and 15 minutes, and then, half an hour more if you're doing demonstrations. Hope that's answered that.
Thanks, Eric. There's another question. How do you highlight the team's strengths?
How do you highlight the team strengths? So yeah, really depends on your, if you're coming from a corporate or from a personal. So if it's a personal team, then you really need to understand your own team really well. understand what their strengths are. There are things like there are psychology tools around Maslow's hierarchy and the, I forgot what it's called, there's a wheel that you can do where certain people in your team will have different strengths and weaknesses. And understanding that you've got a really nice balanced team is a really good way. You may have someone who's really good at technical, someone who's really good at presenting, someone who's really good at translating ideas, you know, so everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. You need to understand your team yourself and then convey those as well. For example, you may have someone who's studying in a major in psychology while another one's doing a technology, another person's doing a business degree. So bringing those things together is really important to make sure that your team that you've got is assembled in the right way to be able to execute on an idea as well. Also showing that you've built something before, you've done something before, your experience, what was your past, you know, is really important to be able to show that you've got a track record of doing something.
Thanks, Eric. There's another question: with the shift to online working environment, what specific advice can you offer in terms of pitching the idea online? So the voice coaching tool was a great example. Do you have any other examples or tips?
So online, I think the more you can demonstrate an idea, the better. So using cloud technologies perhaps to create proof of concepts is a really good way. Obviously now with the online, using the Zoom channels as well, you know, using the meetup groups as well. There's some good meetups going around where people are talking and chatting each other and collaborating online. But yes, it is a challenge, but I think it's also an opportunity because you can show people and interact with people in different ways. But I think it's about being smart around how you use these things. There's some sharing technologies that we're working with which allow you to have collaborative whiteboards. Mural is a really good technology platform to do that. And you know, those kind of things are ways to reach people. The hardest thing I think with customers today and to get your ideas there is getting the awareness. So that's where you need to start using the channels to actually gain your awareness as well. That's probably the most I can answer on that one.
There's another question from Rami. Is it necessary to create a business idea at this point when you're just pitching the idea? Business identity, sorry. Business identity.
So that's more around the branding, I think, is meaning. But yeah, I think that's, if you can brand your idea specifically, that becomes a differentiator and it feeds into the why you, why your idea, what's the unique concept around that. I think if you can, then definitely. But branding is all part of the why you. That should be your unique, you know, why are you, what's your eminence? What's the eminence that you provide? Why are you the expert in the area? And having that brand is really is a good way to actually show the why you, because your online presence, for example, or your company's online presence or your history, that's really quite critical these days as well. So is it critical? No, but definitely valuable.
Any other questions? Okay, I think this brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you all very much for joining us. We look forward to having you with us tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We'll be hosting Paul from GBM, who will be talking about how we can turn an idea into a proof of concept. Many thanks once again, Eric, for these wonderful sessions. We hope you've all enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Raman and Kareem.